Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today I'm going to show you some cards from the 1800s, and we're going to talk about four different cards, four different athletes, and four different sports. So these are the cards that I'm going to show you today, and they're, of course, you know, they're the Goodwin Champions. These are from 1888. And these cards came in the packages of Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes. So they were in 1888, they came in the package of cigarettes. And what I like about these cards really is the artwork on these cards is incredible. So I've gotten just four random guys, but they're not really random. These are, again, from the Goodwin Champions. So these were champions back in the 1880s. And this is a Beach. Beach was an oarsman back in the day. I'll give you a good look at that card. He's an oarsman, and you can see the other oarsman in the background racing there, and they would race. And he was a champion. He was a professional Australian sculler, is what they called him. And he was one of the champions back in the early days. So I'm going to give you a quick look at that card here, close up, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Beach as you look at the card. Now, the reason that it is graded a 2, by the way, is because it was put in an album. It was pasted in an album at one time, but the card is in beautiful condition here. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Beach so you know a little bit about who he was. And basically, Beach was 33 when he challenged Ned Hanlon for his first attempt at the World Sculling Championships. And then the race was on a Parramatta River in 1884. And they had to row 3 miles and 330 yards. And there was $500 prize to whoever won. Beach won by 6 or 7 lengths in a time of 20 meters, whatever. After the race, Hanlon could not accept the fact that he lost because he was a champion. So later on, Beach continued to race, and he continued to win. And then the next defense of his championship was against Australian Neil Matterson, which took place in 1885. And Beach also took a lead at the start and won easily, without great effort. And then again, he raced Jake Gaudour, who also is in this set. There is a Jake Gaudour card, and he also beat Jake Gaudour. So, and then in 1886, Beach was again out on the Thames rowing against Wallace Ross and the World Championship. And it was the most unusual to have title matches this close together, as often many months would go between races. But the result was never in doubt, and Beach won again easily. So he was the champion rower at the time, and he defended his title many, many times. And one of the last races, and this is 1888, and right before, in 1887, he had a title race against Ned Hanlon. And the race was held in the Nepean River near Sydney. Special trains ran from Sydney and take thousands of spectators to see the race. And for the third time, Beach defeated Hanlon for the World Championship. And they said that there were about 5,000 people along the river watching that famous race. So a little bit about Beach. And his full name was William Beach. So it gives you a little bit about him. And these are the cards from the Old Judge Gypsy Queen cigarettes from 1888. And that is champion rower Beach. So the next card I'm going to show you is a card of one of the champion jockeys. And this is McLaughlin. McLaughlin is Jim McLaughlin. He was a jockey. Again, this is from the old Judge Gypsy Queen cigarettes. And what I love about these cards is just a beautiful artwork. You could see that. There's another horse in the background. You can see the track. Look at the uniform and the boots. It's just so detailed, these cards. And there's the American Eagle. So this is Jim McLaughlin. And this one was graded at GAI 5.5. These are some of the ones that I have here at home. I have 6 of this in my safe deposit box and on a PSA, and that's the one that appears on the registry. But I want to talk to you a little bit about McLaughlin as you look at that beautiful card. And look at the artwork on that, done in the 1800s. So McLaughlin was born in 1861. He was an American national champion jockey. And this guy won a lot of races. Jim McLaughlin won the 1885 Preakness Stakes, riding Tecumseh, but finished third with the horse in the Belmont Stakes. He rode 3 consecutive Belmont State winners on 2 separate occasions, claiming victory 6 out of the 7 years in the Belmont. He won the Belmont race in 1882, 1883, 84, and finished third in 85. And then he won the next 3 years in a row, 86, 87, and 1988. And this is where the year of this card is 1888. So he was a champion of the Belmont. McLaughlin won more races than any other jockey in the United States for 4 consecutive times, from 1884 through 1887. So you can see that he was a champion. He won the Preakness, he won the Belmont. He did not win the Kentucky Derby. Now, in those days, he was probably the second best, he was the second best jockey. Even though McLaughlin was inducted into the Hall of Fame, after he passed away, he was posthumously inducted into the National Museum of Racing and the Hall of Fame. So he was a Hall of Fame jockey that won more races than any jockey in the United States through from 1884 to 1887. He was not the top jockey. The top jockey was Isaac Murphy, and Isaac Murphy won almost all of the races in the Kentucky Derby, and he was the overall champion. But you cannot ignore what Jim McLaughlin did in the Hall of Fame jockey. Won more races in those years than any other jockey. And that's just a beautiful card. The artwork on that is just gorgeous. I just love to look at that. Imagine these cards were basically hand printed in the 1800s. And there are less than 50 of these cards graded by any grading companies. And most of these Goodwin Champions, it's one of the rarer sets from the 1800s. So that's a little bit about 2 champions, the champion oarsman, William Beach, and the champion, one of the champion jockeys, James McLaughlin. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the strangest sports around. And this is pedestrian. And pedestrian is kind of a weird type of sport, because what these guys did was they just it was race walking. Essentially, it's race walking. So they had what they called the 6-day races, and this was back again in the 1800s. This is in 1888. Pat Fitzgerald, and Pat Fitzgerald wasn't one of the champions. One of the champions was Charles Roll. I do have his card. Unfortunately, I don't have it. I have that one in the safe deposit box too. But so I wanted to show you just a little bit about the pedestrian, and I wanted to show you mainly the card itself and the beautiful artwork. And you can see these guys would go and walk for 6 days straight, non-stop. And the one that walked the most, won the race. And you can see the kind of shoes they wore, how they kind of wrapped their calves and what they wore to go walking. But the beauty of this card is it just shows, the artwork, a ship back there, the seagulls flying there, him walking by the water, and let me tell you a little bit about how this event, the race walking pedestrianism, it was called. And pedestrianism was a sport where they would walk, and they would walk for 6 days straight. It was a 6-day race. The 6-day race in history was put on actually by none other than P.T. Barnum of the circus fame, Barnum and Bailey. He put on the race, and he set up a track, and people would gather around the track and watch these people walk for 6 days. And they walked up to many miles. One person, O'Leary, walked 503 miles. Another guy, Weston, walked 451 miles. So they would just walk and walk and walk. And the champions was Charles Roel. And this guy was one of the competitors, Pat Fitzgerald. He wasn't one of the champions. But, they did get a belt after the 6-day race as a long-distance champion of the world. These became known as the Ashley Belt races, and cash prizes were offered. O'Leary, who was the champion, won most of the races, but then he was thwarted by Charles Roel in his quest for 3 in a row. Roel won the final 3 multi-day races to permanently keep the Ashley Belt. And what happened after these races, they raced all the way through, and they did it throughout the 1880s, 1890s, and even before that. But once the bicycles came in, they started doing bicycle races. And the bicycle races, they had these big wheeled bicycles. So the pedestrian sport kind of, went off to the side. And they do have it today still, and it's called race walking, and they do have it in the Olympics, and that's what it's called. It's race walking, but they used to call it pedestrianism. So this is one of the pedestrians back from 1888, Pat Fitzgerald. And I just love the artwork of the card, the tree, the seagulls, how he's dressed, the ship in the background, and all that. So just the artwork of these cards to me is just incredible. And I wanted to show you the artwork and tell you a little bit about some of these athletes. And the last one I wanted to talk to you about is this guy right here, Duncan Ross. I've shown this one before, but Duncan Ross was one of the top athletes back in the day. And he was a wrestler in the 1880s. He fought different styles of wrestling, from the catch as you can wrestling style and all that. So he was the American heavyweight champion. He won the American heavyweight championship. He won the American World Greco-Roman Championship, the American World Mixed Style Championship, and the American Collar and Elbow Championship. So even though it says here that he was it says here, he was you can see a broad swordsman. There it is. Duncan Ross was a broad swordsman, and that's how he came out on this card. But he became a wrestler after that. There's a good look at that, broad swordsman, Duncan C. Ross. And let me tell you a little bit more about Duncan Ross here. Let me focus on this a little bit more so you can see him a little bit better. And just the artwork on these cards is just beautiful, just incredible how they did this back in the 1800s. I mean, this is just, right after, 30 years after the Civil War ended. I mean, these are kind of history pieces. So a little bit about Duncan Ross, who's called Captain Duncan Ross. And he was a famous athlete. He was a champion swordsman. He was born in Scottish descent, and at 25, Duncan won the Broadsword Championship of the world and took on all comers for years. And he had a match in 1893, a wrestling match against Evan Lewis for the World Championship. It was a $2,000 purse, and $2,000 back in those days, was a lot of money, And these guys, back in these days were very, very, very good athletes. They did a lot of things. And this guy, as far as a wrestler, he was a champion wrestler. And as a swordsman, he was a champion swordsman. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about his background here. It says that he was also a military instructor back in the days. And it says on here that Jennings fought a sword competition against him. And it says he challenged Jennings to a tournament to confirm his title. The initial tournament, December of 1889, which was a year after this card was made, in 1889, saw Ross break his sword, and the tournament was postponed. The follow-up tournament was attended by 5,600 people, and the final tournament was attended by 25,000 people, with Jennings finally defeating Ross. As an early interest in Australian sports there. So this was it was held in Australia. It was a big sport back then called broad swordsman. And he was the champion for many years. He was defeated, and he went into wrestling and was a wrestling superstar after that. So that's the story on some of these cards. We take another good look at that. Look at that card, how beautiful the artwork is on that. I mean, so detailed, even the background of that. This is the set that contains, in my opinion, the most beautiful baseball card ever, the King Kelly, and also the Cap Anson. And then the rest of the cards in this set are gorgeous. And I just wanted you to take a good look at them. Some of the ones that I feel are some of the nicer ones, with a little bit of the history that goes along with these guys and with these cards. So I want to thank everybody again for looking at my videos, for helping me with my success in my YouTube channel, and just enjoying the cards with me. Really, really appreciate that. So these are some beautiful cards from the 1888 Goodwin Champions, and these were inserted in packs of Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes back in the 1888. Thank you everyone for watching my videos. Much appreciated. Everybody have happy holidays, happy new year, and I'll catch you in the next one. Everybody have an awesome day. This is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.